Hi, everyone, and welcome to Signature West Podcast. I'm your host, Sam West from Palm Springs, California. Some of us in a lifetime are fortunate to meet the one, fall in love, and then life happens. My guest today, Bryan Ayala, was very fortunate to meet the one, fall in love, got engaged, then life happened. He's here today to share his life lesson, his life story, what he learned, how did he heal, how is he healing, and what's next for him. Hi, Bryan. Bryan?
How you doing, Sam? I'm so sorry.
It's okay. How are you?
Very well, very well.
So your story is very dear to me. I know it very well. Take us back to around the year 2011. What was your life like? What were you living? What was your life like?
In 2011, I was still married to my ex-wife, and making some transitions in my life. I think I was at that period of time, I think I just left my dad's business, which I ran for about 25 years. And so a lot of things were happening in that transition, which led to a further transition in 2012 when me and my ex-wife got separated. And and that transition there had me kind of looking for some purpose in my life and to see, one of those kind of searching to see, if this is all it has to offer.
Right. And then in 2012, you met the one. What was that? How did you guys meet? And what was that like?
We did. It was probably the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013. We were, I went to a personal development conference, and it was called Omega Vector, and it was in Phoenix, Arizona. And there was something that I had read in a book. I can't remember the name of the book, but the authors were the same guys that wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Oh yeah, great book.
Right. And I should know the authors, but I don't. But whatever book that was, that they wrote another book. And in the beginning of the chapter, they were explaining this, higher consciousness and awareness. And in the first couple paragraphs of that chapter, they referenced Omega Vector, which seemed very attractive to me. And I wanted to learn more about that higher consciousness and awareness. And so that's what led me to Omega Vector.
Okay. So how did you meet Tanaz, and what was that like?
So in the format of the Omega Vector, they had Omega 1, and I think Omega 2 and Omega 4. I guess 1 plus 1 is 2 and 2 plus 2 is 4. And I think we met on the 2. And in the first one, you did a lot of what they call dyads, and these are just sharing, being vulnerable with somebody sitting across from each other, knee to knee, and in a chair. And but in Omega 1, you would do dyads with several different people. You had several different partners throughout the 3 or 4 days of the program. In Omega 2, they said, okay, be selective, pick your partner. It'll be somebody of the opposite sex, but this is the same person you're going to have for the duration of throughout all 4 days, or 3 or 4 days, or whatever it was. One, I certainly wanted the best looking person to be sitting across from me.
Of course.
As shallow as that may have sounded, but
Not at all.
And I was just hoping that, this wasn't some batshit crazy person
Right.
that I chose. So, Tanaz was there, and I went over to her and said, "Hey, would you like to be my partner?" And she said, "Well, I'm not going to save you." And I said, "Well, I don't need to be saved." I didn't think
Right.
at the time.
Don't we all? Yeah.
And oh no, I know. But yeah, that's how we met, and it was.
So when did you know she was the one?
Well, we had the benefit of becoming really, really close in that environment, and maybe it was designed to be that way, so that you're sharing your intimate feelings with your partner. But I think there was something sparked there that we both kind of understood and knew, maybe that we didn't act on.
Right.
But yeah, she was extremely helpful in helping me see a lot of things about my life that I guess at the time I wasn't really ready to look at. And then she lived in LA, I lived in Vegas, this was in Phoenix. So you kind of had this, well, even if there was a connection, how would that work?
How would we work it out?
Yeah, and so there was that kind of barrier that probably kept it from blossoming sooner than it did.
So when did you both decide to start dating?
It was kind of organic. I think that we certainly stayed in contact, and we would talk on the phone regularly.
Right.
So it was kind of courting each other over the phone, and then I would have business in LA, and I'd make sure and take time and see her, and yeah, but it just really grew organically. It wasn't for about 6 months,
Right.
7 months before we started really addressing how does this work, how do we go forward, and I remember saying, I don't know, but I've never felt like this before, so we'll make it work one way or the other.
And what was that feeling you referred to?
Just completely safe. She was an old soul, so she had a lot about her that made me want to be a better person. She had done a lot of work on herself, and to me that was very attractive. So it allowed her to allow me to be just be me, and that's not an experience that I had really had before. Not that I just hadn't had that experience.
So you continue. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So you continue to the process, and you got a little deeper, I would imagine.
Correct.
You met the family.
Yeah, then we and I can't. It all blended together pretty interesting. So I can't remember if I brought her here or I went there, or I think we went on a trip together to San Francisco. That's what it was. And I'll never forget going on that trip. She said, "Look, I'll do anything you want to do. I'm here to have fun. I don't care. Just tell me if we are gonna be walking or driving. So I'll know whether I should wear heels or flats."
I love it.
And I said, "That's it.
That's it.
That's all you need. So everything else we can just do whatever." And she goes, "Yeah," and we had the best time. We really did. And ironically, we ended up meeting my cousin there. He was from Chicago and he happened to be in town in San Francisco. And so we went out to dinner, and I did, hey, what are we driving, or we gonna walk? And he says, well, we'll Uber it on over. So I told her, and so she was in heels, and it was only a mile away. We should have been walking in the first place, but when we got done, my cousin John said, well, let's kind of walk a couple blocks. Let's walk this off a little bit. And I knew she had the heels on, and we kept walking and
she kept on walking. She kept on walking.
And she kept on walking. I go, hey, you okay? And she goes, yeah, I think I'm okay. And John kept going, yeah, we're almost there. And Tanan said, you know what, that just reminds me of when she was escaping Iran with her dad. And, you know, as a little girl that was 7 or 8 or 9 years old.
Right.
And they kept saying, she kept going, when are we going to be there? And they'd say, see the top of that mountain there? As soon as we get over that. And then they get there, and then they go, see that next mountain? We're almost there. What
a metaphor.
So, but it wasn't too far, but it was funny because she ended up having to walk back in her heels. But she never got upset at me about it.
So you went deeper and deeper, as I know. And now we're at 2015, and things were just about to change.
Yeah, we had spent what was that, the beginning of 13, sometime in 13 through so we started heating up in 13 there, and you know, started discussing how our lives were going to look. It was getting easier to either fly her to Vegas or me go there. We were talking about getting together, making a life together. Part of my journey was understanding that I was numbing a lot of pain through alcohol. And in November of 14, I decided to get sober. And so that was a part of the story as well. But it was so easy because she was always very supportive. She never told me, hey, if you don't stop drinking, I'm out of here. I knew based on her previous experiences that, you know, she would just not, you know, she had more respect for herself than to tolerate that stuff in the future.
And then in 15, there was a discovery.
So in 6 months into that journey, in June of 2015, her cousin was getting married, and so we went to the wedding and had a great time. And she had a little pain in the back of her, in her back, but she came to, actually it was Florida with me right after that wedding to a conference. And so we were at the conference, and she had I can't remember if it was she had stomachache and lower back pain, and so she was going to go see the doctor when she got back. And I remember we didn't think much of it. When she went to the doctor, she said, hey, I've done my research, and I think it could be this or that, or it could be pancreatic issue. And he said, yeah, let's take some tests. And so they took some tests, and then it turned out it was pancreatic cancer.
When you found that out, how did you feel?
It was surreal. It was that part was, it was like it wasn't true, but at the same time, you know, I know I'm more optimistic than not. So my first thought is, well, we'll get through this and figure it out and get to the other side. But yeah, it was extremely shocking. I remember it was I found out about noon as I was on my way to a lunch. And then after the lunch, I just got myself together and got on a plane and sorry about that.
Brian?
I'm here.
Okay. You okay?
I am.
Okay.
So anyway, we got to LA as quick as I could, and then I think it was good for both of us to be together and go to the doctor the next day and figure out how everything looked for us in the future.
And then you found out. So now it's, I would imagine, more surreal and more real. And so now, how did you feel?
Well, we purposely didn't ask for how much time you have. I don't think either one of us wanted to know how bad it was, because I don't think we saw a lot of value in that in terms of how much time you have left. But we started doing our research, and whether you're going to go the holistic route or whether you were going to go the chemo route, and at the time it was a when we were looking at it in the first couple months. And by the way, the doctor said, hey, look, you've got a little bit of time. You don't have to start anything for a couple 4 or 5 weeks, but you should figure out what you're going to do by then. And so I remember we looked at some of the holistic routes, and they said, don't do chemo. Just come straight here and don't do chemo. And being influenced by Western medicine, we were like, well, you're asking us to put our life in your hands, and we don't even know what that has to offer. We know what chemo has.
Right.
And so even though she'd done some holistic things prior to that and saw value in it, she said Dr. Hoffman, the chemotherapy doctor, or the cancer doctor, was driving the bus, and so we were going to do the chemo. And she had done a lot of leading up to the chemo. She had done a lot of some natural vitamins and pills and stuff. We had a bunch of that stuff, but when she was doing the chemo, I think it was going to counteract that. So
right.
We just did the chemo. And then after about 4 weeks of that, she asked him if she could do some of this holistic stuff. And he said, sure, you got time before the next round. And she was doing that, and the tumor shrunk. And so he was like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Cause that's
good news.
That's good news. And then, anyway, so the good thing with T was, and me, I think we were perfect partners for each other on that journey.
So when did you get engaged?
We got engaged, backtrack. So we started in 13. I was targeting getting engaged with her on her birthday, which was July 9th of 2015. We got this news probably a week or two before that.
Right.
So I sped that up. So
when did you shave your head?
So. I didn't shave my head till I think September. So September, when she was losing her hair from chemo. We had started got diagnosed in June or July. She started chemo in late August, and then like mid-September, I think I shaved my head.
And that was because
just to show some support.
Right. Right. I just want to make sure the listeners understand that I believe she also shaved her hair as well due to the
Oh,
chemo.
yeah, she was, I can't recall what her hair was falling out. She was going to go get a wig, and she was struggling with that. And so I was going to fly from Vegas that, I think it was a Wednesday.
Right.
So I went and I didn't tell her, but I got my head shaved. And then when she picked me up at the airport, she was surprised, and she just drove right to her place and got her head shaved. So.
And then you did as well.
I had already had it shaved.
Oh, you did it first?
In Vegas. Yes. So it just showed some support, and then it gave her the
idea.
Well, not just the idea. I think she was going to do it. I think she was struggling with it. It just made it easier for her.
Right.
So it was beautiful.
So during all this, which was, I imagine it was a lot, the chemo, the shaving, the medicine, trying this, trying that, searching for this doctor, searching for that doctor. How were you coping, and where did you find the stream to sustain yourself?
It was kind of like put your optimistic hat on, but it was not without reality. So we proceeded with a lot of hope,
right,
and a dose of reality. I know there was this really good book called what is it? I used to know. Let me think of it here. I'll have to tell you about it later. But it was written by gosh, it just drives me nuts that I can't remember it right now. But it's the 9 key things that this PhD from Harvard had wrote a book, had done a lot of research about the 9 key things that these thousands of patients that she had interviewed had done. They'd all done several different things, but these were the 9 key things that they did. Oh, it's called Radical Remission.
Thank you.
And it was by Kelly something or another. I can't remember her last name. Pretty easy. But so these are radical remission cases that she would highlight, and she wasn't saying that you got to do one thing or the other or any of the 9 things, or don't do chemo or do chemo. She's just saying, hey, here's what these radical remission cases, here's all the key things, the 9 things that they all did in common. And there's a couple thousand interviews that she had done. And so I remember saying, hey, why not you?
Of course.
Why not you? Why not leave yourself? And she was, and Tanaz was that way. She was
right.
Like, yeah, absolutely. Why not me?
Right. So during this also, there was expense. This is not a cheap, inexpensive process. There was a campaign created called Team Tanaz. Can you just spend a minute or two on that?
Yeah. So we knew it was going to be an expensive ordeal. So sometime before she started chemo, it would probably be August of 15. We put a campaign together to raise some money, and we called it Team Tanaz. And I don't know if this was before.
Brian, you there?
I don't know what the what is it? GoFundMe now. It wasn't GoFundMe back then, so I don't know what it was, but it was kind of new technology. But people responded very well.
How much how much was raised? I believe it was
a couple hundred grand. 250,000.
Right.
We ended up raising, and most of that was from
friends and family.
It was all friends and family, but it was like $200, $300, $400, $500
Right. Very
donations,
generous.
and
Very generous.
there'd be a couple that were significantly higher than that
Right.
really made you smile.
Right. So unfortunately, I want to say a few months, or maybe I think it was a year after that, is when things really took a turn.
So yeah, she was doing we were doing well with the holistic, and then we got a immunotherapy drug donated. So we had to do that. You know, you got it donated, you might as well take advantage of it. So now we're into December of 15, January of 16. Somewhere along the way, maybe in February or March, her bones started hurting. The pain pills weren't helping out. So yeah, so she ended up in the hospital for the month of last part of March and all of April, trying to manage the pain. And that's when I realized the doctors told me that, and it made sense at the time. It's like every day in the hospital is equals a week of recovery. And he said that early on.
Right.
And I was like, we got to get her out of here, because, you know, you're in the hospital 30, 40 days. And
that's 30, 40 weeks.
And yeah, exactly. And you got cancer you're fighting. And the other thing we were doing right at that point in time is in March, we'd done a lot more research about these clinics in Mexico that follow the Gerson diet or modeled after the Gerson diet. And and I could tell that that's really where she would feel most comfortable.
Right.
But she was getting a lot of pressure from, you know, family and friends. And I remember just saying, hey, you got to listen to yourself and to your instinct. What does your instinct tell you? Where do you think you'd be most comfortable? So we were gonna get ready to go down there as soon as that immunotherapy. I think that last dose was going to be in the mid-March, and we were going to go down there. And didn't make it down there until the beginning of May.
Right.
And at that, it was actually mid-May is when we ended up going down there. So we were down there for a couple of weeks. Yeah, she really limped into that one. And I didn't know what to expect. And I knew that the doctors there were somewhat optimistic, but you could just tell it was going to take a lot to get where we needed to be.
You certainly tried. You guys certainly tried.
Oh yeah, we totally tried. And then they got to the point where they needed to do some type of surgery, and we weren't going to do it down there. So we came back to Scripps, right over the border, down in Lower San Diego. Anyway, we went.
So now take us to I hate to say it, the last few days.
Well, we made it to Scripps, and so that was like a Saturday, and so they did the surgery on a Sunday, I believe it was Sunday or Monday, and it was pretty good, you know, what needed to be done. But when they got done with the surgery, the doctor came in and goes, look, because I was in there, things are moving along, they're pretty bad, and it's not going to be too much longer after that.
So when we heard that right there and then, obviously there's a shift. How did you feel?
Well, I need to fill in some of the blanks. So back when we were at the clinic in Mexico, probably about a week into it, she was hurting, and she said, you know what, I just want to go home and I want to die. Wow. That's it. And and that was a little bit of, it was hard for her parents and her brothers to absorb that, and I think they helped her decide that, you know what, I'm going to give it another effort and stay. But she had told me somewhere in there that, you know what, I just, I know where it's going, and I just, I'm ready to die. So when the doctor told me that, I think we may have had a discussion in San Diego before the surgery. But when I got out, I just remember telling her, I go, well, you're going to get your wish a little sooner than you might have thought, because we didn't know how long she was going to have to wait. It was going to be months and weeks, and so that part was more of a relief for her, and I was relieved to see her relieved.
Right.
It was more that kind of situation. It was unfolding the way it was supposed to. I don't know how to explain it any different than that, because we were both completely at peace with it.
I get it.
So I think that was a Monday, and then remember Tuesday we were talking, and some of her friends had come and visited her, and in the morning, and then about lunchtime, remember I was going to go get some lunch, and I did. My mom happened to be down there as well. And when I got back, she goes, oh, she was hurting, and they gave her some, what was it? I can't remember what it was, Ativan or Ativan.
Could be.
And so she had, whatever it was, she'd had a horrible experience, meaning it knocked her out when she was back in the hospital in Cedars-Sinai in April. So I'm like, God dang it, that, I didn't want that for her. Well, she never came back from that. So she was in the delirium stage anyhow. I don't think it was that was making her die. I think that's where she was, and they gave her the medication to help with it, but she never regained consciousness from there. So that was a Tuesday, and so we had to be there through Sunday morning.
I remember the day. What did this process teach you?
Oh, it taught me a lot. And I don't think it would have necessarily taught me as much without being with Tanaz. I think I think we were perfect for each other. We loved each other, and I think that I don't think I would have gotten as much out of it in 5 years prior. But what I did get out of it is, one, I'm not scared of death. Two, that life is going to happen, and it's going to happen the way it's supposed to. I may not like it. I may not understand the reason for it happening. But there's two things that are going to continue to happen the rest of my life, and that's joy and pain. I think subconsciously thought I would experience all the pain I had to experience, but that's, it's taught me that, and it's taught me how to handle adversity in other situations, and I've never had this happen before with anybody else that's died, including my father, who died a couple years ago. Tanaz died about 4 years ago. I feel her presence on a regular basis.
I'm sure you do.
So that was there's some unique aspects of that, and I still do.
Will you fall in love again?
Oh, I'm certain. I didn't have that experience not to fall in love again. You know, that's the other thing. The last lucid conversation that we had, she said, "I honestly hope you find love in your life," and she meant it.
Oh, wow. Do you want to fall in love again?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You do.
Absolutely. You know, the bar's been set pretty high,
Right.
and I don't say it's high in a way that it can't be achieved. It's I know what it is.
Right.
And when it's not, I mean, that's probably something else that has taught me to know what it's not. So I'm not today. I'm not in a position where I'm going to say yes to something just because I'm trying to fill a void in companionship.
Correct.
It's just not. That would not have been the case years ago, but as a result of this experience, yeah, I understand exactly what it needs to be, and I'm not trying to duplicate Tanaz. That's
you
not.
Can't.
It's not. That's not the goal.
Right.
But you know, being with somebody that understands who they are and has done a lot of work on themselves is probably an important part of it.
Right.
People that understand, even if they understand, hey, I'm not done with my journey yet. You know, I'm still, you know, recovering from pain and that some parts of those are attractive as well. But it's just as long as, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff packed into it. But, you know, I remember something vividly early on when we were still courting each other and we were talking on the phone. This may paint a little bit of the picture. And I remember it was at night. I must have said something. I don't know what it was that upset her, but I didn't know she was upset. And the next day when we were talking on the phone, she said, "Can I tell you something?" I said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." She said, "You know you didn't mean it this way, but last night when we were talking, when you said this is how it made me feel." And I was like, wow, that's always stuck with me, because it wasn't just a get out of jail free card. It was, you know, that's the way you should communicate if you care about somebody, rather than give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And you know, that could have manifested itself in a ton of different ways that would be negative, but I always remember that, and it's always made me want to be that type of person as well.
Right. I get it. She was very special. One last question. What did the current situation, COVID, teach you?
Oh, well, COVID taught me, well, I don't know if it taught me, I know this during the time when we were, everybody was quarantined. I knew clearly that's something that I did not control. And instead of worrying about something that I didn't control, I also was kind of enjoying having the time off and not having to worry about something I couldn't do anything about.
Interesting.
And I also said, you know, I am not going to be a year from now when everything's fine and we figured out how the world looks after we've got some, you know, foundation under our feet. I'm not going to look back on that and go, exactly why didn't you enjoy the 2 months off that you'll never have again in your life?
It's more than 2 months, by the way.
Well, yeah, at that time is how I was looking at it.
Right.
Anyway, we got back to work a little bit in June, May and June.
Brian, thank you so much for doing this. I know it's not an easy topic, but I do appreciate it.
Perfect.
And thank you, everyone that's listening. Please subscribe And this is Sam West with Signature West Podcast. And I will see you next time. Thank you very much.